I'm Kayla, and this is a role-play mediation prepared for the Woodbury Institute Tape Assessment. Today's date is February 20th, 2016. Welcome, everyone. My name is Kayla, and I will be your mediator today. And you are?
I am Susan.
Susan. Nice to meet you. And you are?
Barbara.
Barbara. Is that how each of you prefer to be called?
That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I know that I spoke with each of you briefly on intake, and I explained a little bit about what mediation is, but I'm going to go over that again just so everyone's on the same page. My role here as a mediator is not to give any suggestions or judgments. I'm not here to make any decision. I'm really just here to help facilitate a conversation with the two of you. There might be a time where I ask for separate meetings where I'd meet with each of you separately, but when I do that, I'll definitely go over it more, but it could just, help the process move along better, and anything that is said in those separate meetings won't be shared unless you ask for me to share that. This process is entirely voluntary. If at any point you feel as though this isn't working, let me know. We will do a quick wrap up and then end the session. Also, I won't be sharing what is talked about in the session with anyone outside of here. If you do come up with an agreement, I'll write it up and then I will hand it to each of you. What you do out of here is, your choice, but I won't be doing anything after. I might be taking some notes. That's just so I can stay on track with everything, but I'll shred those afterwards. I think that we each have gone over fees on the phone already, so we don't really need to touch upon that. We have around 45 minutes today. If there is an agreement that is made by the end of that, then that's fine. You'll write it up. If not, there can be a discussion on, another mediation potentially or some next steps. So do either of you have any questions before we begin?
Oh, I think I'm good.
Okay, so like I said, I really don't know much about what is going on, so I'm going to ask that each of you start by talking a little bit about why you're here and what you're looking to do today. So, Susan, if you would like to start.
Yeah, I'm here because Barbara brought me into court because she says that my dog destroyed her rose bushes. So that's the basic bottom line. There's other things going on with us as neighbors, but that's pretty much why we're here.
Okay. Do you want to talk about, what else is going on briefly? If not, it's okay, but.
Well, one of the main things is I work at an all-night coffee shop. I'm a baker.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't get home until like 3 or 3:30, and then so I'm not in bed until 4:30. And her son Ted gets up at 7:30, right outside my window, turns on his motorcycle, revs it up, so I can't get a good night's sleep, basically.
Okay. So you've been brought here today because of issues between, Barbara and your dog, but you're also concerned with some, some noise issues that have been going on in the neighborhood.
Exactly.
Okay. And Barbara,
Mm-hmm.
would you like to talk a little bit about why you're here, what you're looking to do?
I'm actually asking for $200
Okay.
from Susan to replace the rose bushes that I'm very convinced that your dog dug up. They were brand new, and I put a lot of stock in how my yard looks, and I put a lot of my personal energy and money and time into it, and I was so disappointed when this happened. I have had occasion previously when I've had guests over that your dog has pooped in my yard, and I know that it's him. I have company that comes over, and I had one very embarrassing situation where somebody stepped in. So I've heard from other people in the neighborhood that the dog is not well controlled. And actually, some people think it's my dog, I guess because we live close to each other and they don't know where the dog's coming from. And There was some innuendo made about him scaring kids or something. I didn't actually see that, so I don't know if you even know that that's happened. That came to me through the neighborhood, so.
So something that you're concerned about is your rose bushes,
Mhm.
for the fact that you had taken a lot of time to, put them in, allow
Yep.
them to grow, things like that. And so you're looking to talk a little bit about Susan's dog and how it has an involvement in your property and things like that.
Right. Mhm.
Okay. Would it be helpful, just because I don't know where each of you live, what it looks like, to talk a little bit about, what your neighborhood looks like?
It's a residential neighborhood. I rent a house next door to Barbara's. We share, I might as well draw on here. So like,
Yeah, I can also, try to do a visual for you, even though my art skills aren't the best. Just so everyone can see.
so,
Would this be your house?
yeah.
Okay. And then this is Barbara.
Mhm.
And so these are driveways.
Oh,
And
okay.
then, in between is a white picket fence. I mean, it's more driveway than.
So there,
It's-
it's like
it's
a
just a-
large driveway, and then
Yeah,
there's the, okay.
And then a little bit of a fence and a little bit of grass. in
That
it.
could pretend, let's say that's a road. No, just kidding. Okay, so that's the fence.
Right.
Is it just one fence?
Yeah, it's just a white picket fence with,
Okay.
a little bit of grass and then
Okay.
stuff around it.
Where are the backyards?
Up kind of at the top.
Okay, so this area
Mhm.
here. Okay. And there, does the fence go all the way back?
No, it's just pretty much ends at the level of the backs of the house.
Here, okay, so essentially your yard is open, each
Right.
of your
We
yards
have
are
some
open?
trees and she's done a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah, I've done
plantings.
a lot.
So that it's kind of delineated, but it's with
Okay.
plants, not,
Mhm. No
you know,
fence.
no fencing.
Okay, so where, Barbara, if you don't mind me
Mhm.
asking, are the rose bushes that you began talking about?
They were at the front of the property. 'Cause
Over here?
There's a lot of green space.
Okay.
That's part of our.
So the roses are here,
Mhm.
okay. So is this an accurate depiction,
Good
minus
enough.
my lack in
Yeah.
drawing skills? Okay, okay. Just so I can understand a little more. So talk about, how long have each of you lived next door to each other? And when did things start happening that concerned each of you?
I've been there for, I think 11 or maybe 12 years.
Uh-huh.
Barbara moved in 3 years ago, so.
Okay. And how did things go at first?
It was good.
Yeah.
We've always had a good neighborly relationship.
Yeah, with my schedule, I'm gone
Mm-hmm.
in the evenings, so we only kind
Yeah.
of see each other across the way on the weekends.
Yeah.
We don't really interact much.
Okay.
It's like a lot of Vermont neighbors. We all come out in the nice weather, and that's when we know our neighbors best
Mhm.
and interact most.
And then hibernate in
Uh-huh.
the winter time?
Yep.
Okay. So is this incident with the rose bushes, is that kind of the beginning of when things started going awry?
Actually, when this happened and I went over to talk with Susan, she got very angry with me, and I felt like she wasn't wanting to have conversation about it, and so this is my perception that she deflected the issues that I was having onto my son, and his name is Ted,
Right.
and his motorcycle.
Okay.
Well, it was like 8 o'clock in the morning, about a half an hour after Ted woke me up, so.
Well,
So
he was
so all of
alert.
this kind of
Foremost in my
happened?
mind at the time.
Okay, so it all happened close together?
Huh?
Okay. And Susan, would it be helpful to, and Barbara, to have a conversation right now about you know, the incident that did happen, because it seems as though each of you haven't been able to talk about it.
I'm still not convinced that my dog Rover did it.
Okay.
And, you know, I mean, they're new, but they're pretty big. They've got, you know, a lot of thorns. It's like, I can't imagine a dog doing more than, you know, oh, that hurts and going away. You know, I can't imagine digging up 4 rose bushes. I just can't imagine a dog doing that.
Okay, so you don't feel as though Rover was responsible for this, therefore you don't think that
Exactly.
having a conversation about it would be productive. Okay. And Barbara, what makes you think that this was Rover?
I did not actually see it happen.
Okay.
But all the signs were there. I know what it looks like when dogs are digging around, and you don't, in order to kill a rose bush, you don't necessarily dig up the whole thing. You dig all around it, and that damages it and loosens all the roots, and then they die. Some of them were turned over, too. So I had no doubt, I have no doubt at all that it was him that did it. In addition to all the other times that I see him in my yard and, you know, digging around at stuff, and I wouldn't say that anything else was particularly damaged, but going poop in my yard, I have to look around for that and try to clean it up.
So are you looking for, you know, I know that you first talked about the rose bushes, but
Mhm.
are you looking for more of something where your property is separate from Susan's in the fact that her dog won't be entering your property, your dog won't be entering hers? Is
Mhm.
that sort of what you're looking for?
You know, first blush, I'd say no. I don't want to actually define the properties with structure.
Okay.
I would love it if there was a way that she could keep Rover in her yard. And barring that, I mean, I know you must take him for walks and things like that. So, you know.
Yeah, he's a puppy, so he needs, you know, he's a 9-month-old puppy, so.
What kind of dog is he?
A German Shepherd.
Okay. And what kind of dog do you have?
I don't have a dog.
Oh, sorry, I thought you said that you had a dog. Okay,
No.
that makes things more clear.
Mm.
So because Rover being a puppy, does he kind of roam around doing puppy things?
Well, he's got a lot of energy. I won't
Mhm.
deny that. You know, I'm sure he goes to neighbors' houses when I'm not looking.
Mm-hmm.
But
Is there any reason why you haven't thought, especially since he's young and he's trainable, to get one of those corkscrew things that goes in the ground?
those are terrible.
Okay.
Those are
All right.
Are those the things with the leases?
Yeah,
Or
they-
the,
like
Like-
tying a dog out. No.
That's not anything that you'd like to do.
so from my understanding is that Rover's a puppy. You know, you're not saying that he doesn't roam around, but he has a lot of energy, but you're not looking to, you know, put him on a leash or a runner
Yeah,
in the back of the yard to where he's constrained
I strongly
physically.
believe in positive training. You know, rewarding good behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And then, as more and more good behavior is rewarded, then there's less time for bad behavior. So, you know, something like tying him out, you know, isolating him, that's just not something I can tolerate.
Okay.
I sort of appreciate that philosophy. As a matter of fact, I do. But I would like it better if there's some way that I didn't have to be involved in the bad stuff before all the good stuff happened.
So you don't
You know
want
what
to
I
be
mean?
seen as a negative person in Rover's life,
No,
essentially.
it's not that. It's just that I think I understand the philosophy is that you reward good things, but you don't necessarily punish bad things. And so, so there's no motivation for Susan to keep him out of my stuff and to keep him out of my yard. Is that right?
There is. I mean,
Okay.
You know, obviously I would have better neighbors
Oh,
better relations
yes.
with neighbors if my
Mhm.
dog didn't go in their yard.
Yep.
But that's a very hard behavior to train,
Train.
you know.
Mhm.
It's a lot easier to train them to do something than not to do something, if you know what I mean. You know, it's
Would
easier
it-
to train them to sit than to, you know, not walk away or something.
Yeah, I get that.
So-
I'm just trying to figure out how that would work.
I was going to say, would it be helpful at some point in our discussion today to talk about, you know, maybe ways to keep Rover in your yard so that that could potentially, you know, help the relationship between each of you? I know you mentioned not wanting to have to put in a divide, but maybe brainstorming some ways to, you know, keep things on each side. Would that be helpful?
Might be.
I have a philosophy at play here too, and it also has to do with the land, not fencing it and bordering it. I don't mind the fence because it's in the driveway. But I love the feel of a naturalized sort of backyard, and I don't want the intrusiveness of fences, for example. So that's, I guess, my concern.
So something that's important to you isn't, you know, putting constraints on the backyard that each of you do
Right.
to have together?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So let me just summarize, you know, what I think I've heard from each of you so far. Susan, you mentioned that your dog Rover is young and that you don't really feel as though he got into the rose bushes, but that he does, you know, wander in the neighborhood, and you're looking for ways to, you know, enforce the positive behavior of staying, you know, in the backyard, things like that. And Barbara, you, like you just mentioned, you don't want to put up a fence, anything like that, to, you know, keep him out, but you would also look for ways to where you don't have to be the bad guy in the situation, with Rover, you know, going in your lawn, things like that. So
I would never punish the dog. I
Right.
have never done anything like, I don't know, anything.
right, I guess what I
I'm
meant
just
in that
putting up
sense
with
is
it.
you not being able to reinforce the positive behavior because
Mm.
that's not
Yeah, I wouldn't know how to do that.
right, something like that. Not that you're, you know,
Yeah.
doing anything bad, but
Oh,
just
no.
that you can't
Yeah.
reinforce positive behavior. So let me see. Would you like to work on today talking?
There's also the motorcycle.
I was just going to mention that, you know, the noise that may be interfering with each of
Sleep.
with your sleep because you have opposite schedules. So that must be hard for each of you. You said that you get home at 3:30, you know, bed later than that. So I don't know if it would be helpful to have a conversation about the noise since you are sharing such a close space, and then also ways to maintain independence in those spaces with dogs, things like that. Is that something you want to work on today?
I'm not sure about how the noise would work. My first priority here is obviously my son. We had a loss in the family a few months ago, and since then he's been suffering some emotional problems. And one of the ways that he's managing to hold on to a structure in his life is getting up and going to work and having his motorcycle. He gets a tremendous amount of satisfaction and freedom, other emotional positives that happen for him that are associated with that motorcycle.
So the motorcycle is very important to him, and that
Yes.
he keeps that.
Yes, and I almost don't know that I don't know what kind of conversation I could have around that.
Do you
Could
know?
like a muffler, maybe?
Well, I was
it's
gonna
the
ask, do you
One of
know-
the loudest motorcycles on the market, I think.
Do you know if there are other ways that he could keep his motorcycle
Uh-huh.
still and do, you know, keep that one part that is still very positive in his life, but maybe talking about other ways he can do that?
he goes to counseling, and,
No,
and
I
I'm
mean-
very supportive of him.
I think that might have come out wrong. I mean,
Okay.
ways that he can continue to have his motorcycle, go to work and things like that, but
Mhm.
perhaps in a different way. Not that, I didn't know if that was, like Susan had just mentioned, bringing up an idea of, I think you said
A
a
muffler.
muffler or something like
Mhm.
that. Ways that he wouldn't have to get rid of his motorcycle, because it seems as though it's very important to him, but
Or can he like drive to school and ride his motorcycle when I'm at work, in the afternoon when I'm at work after school?
Again, I'm not sure that I want to poke that giant that we kind of have under control, or we're making some progress on now. I just don't know what that would look like. And I'm not even sure, except for the idea that you had about a muffler, and I don't know exactly how much of an improvement that would be. I just don't know, because I just don't know. Other than that, I don't think I would be willing to have a conversation about telling him he can't ride his motorcycle. Yeah.
Well, maybe I can't have a conversation about keeping my dog in the yard.
I look at that as that's something that you and I have control over, or we can talk about that, but my son is separate from this, and he's not here at the table talking with us, and so, and again, I'm not sure what kind of vulnerabilities that would open for him.
are you afraid to
Yeah.
bring it up in general with him,
Mhm.
or to even talk about possibilities that he couldn't have his motorcycle anymore?
I'm not
just
sure
so
I
I
have
can-
the skills to do that with
Okay.
his state right now.
Would
I
it
don't know.
be helpful to have a conversation around him keeping the motorcycle, but maybe addressing Susan's concerns at the same time?
I don't know. I just don't know. I feel like if I was going to project what that conversation would look like, it would provoke anger in him, maybe an irrational, maybe not, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what to say about that. I appreciate what you say about you get, what time do you get home now? What time do you go to bed? I'm sorry.
Well, I
You
go to bed
work.
around 4:30, so I get home around, depending, between 3 and 3:30. I take the dog out.
Right,
Um,
and you go to sleep.
So I'm starting to fall asleep around 4:30. And then, 3.5 hours later at the most,
Mm-hmm.
he says,
Yeah,
and it's just,
yeah.
it's right outside, my bedroom is right next to the driveway. And he's right out in the driveway starting his motorcycle, so it's just, there's just no relief.
So is it for you, because it is so close to where you are sleeping, that is affecting, your sleep cycle, things like that? Is
Yeah.
it the closeness?
Exactly.
Okay.
Well, at least that's certainly a big factor. I don't know if it's,
Do you think that if he walked the motorcycle to the other side of the yard or something, because it's a big motorcycle, so I don't think you can walk too far, I don't know. And
That-
then started it
that would
up like
probably help.
with a buffer of like the house.
Because I'm sure,
I don't know.
because he starts it in between the houses, so if he even walked it just so he was in
I
front of
mean,
the
if you walked
houses.
over to here, like
Yeah.
came down the road.
Mm-hmm.
That would be
because
great.
I don't know.
Okay.
At least, as a, see how that works.
So it seems as though that could be an option, so that way he could still ride his motorcycle to
Right.
work, he could
Yeah.
still follow his schedule, he would just be moving it out of the way to where you're sleeping probably feet away. It seems as though each of you live close together, so that could be,
Had you
An
ever
option.
mentioned this to him before?
I did
Uh-huh.
one morning.
I didn't hear anything about
He
that,
just,
so.
he just shrugged his shoulder, I just gotta go to school by,
Yeah,
so.
yeah, so. that's not a surprising reaction for anybody. But yeah, it never got brought up in the family, like when we were having supper or anything like that. So
Was this all new to you, the noise conversation that was brought up today?
no,
Oh,
no,
okay.
it was, no, I think what I had thought of, what I had thought about it was that it was just like a quid pro quo. It was, I was over complaining about the doggy, and so Susan was, that's human, that's kind of human nature in a way. Well, you think your dog bothers me, you should hear what your son does bothers me. You know what I mean? I just sort of thought that's where it was coming from, and we didn't get any deeper in the conversation because it was a little unpleasant, right? Yeah.
I think it can be difficult at times in the heat of the moment to talk out the problems that each of you may be having. So I think that, after some time has passed and you're able to meet again, it could be more beneficial to talk it out now. But I think that option of moving the motorcycle could be good for each of you because it would satisfy your need to sleep and satisfy your wanting for your son to keep that, have his motorcycle, have that schedule, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
we haven't really talked about the rose bushes again.
I was just going to bring it up. So
Okay.
I had mentioned, talking about the independence that each of you would like to keep, having separate yards, separate things in your yards, things like that, and the noise. So is the rose bushes something that you would also like to talk about?
Yes. Well, I would. Yeah.
Susan, how do you feel about having a conversation on that?
Mine as well.
Okay.
So there's two things here in my mind, and I think it would be productive to separate them. There's the rose bushes,
Mhm.
which I feel I would like to have replaced, or I'd like the money for, and I will replace them in terms of planting them and going out and buying new ones and things like that. But then there's also the ongoing thing about Rover being in my yard a lot and going poop in my yard, and other people too. I'm not here to advocate for everybody in the neighborhood, because I'm not. But just telling you, because you and I know each other and we're next door neighbors, and we're more than acquaintances, right? That other people in the neighborhood are getting more and more aggravated about it, and they will be coming to you soon. I am doing the best to de-escalate them. A couple people knew that you and I were going to have a conversation today, but just saying, it's not just me, it's other folks. And
Is that hard to hear that other people in the neighborhood feel the same way?
If it's true, yeah.
Because I remember you mentioning that neighbor relationships is something that you value. With Barbara, I don't know about anyone else in the neighborhood, but
Yeah, I mean, I've been there 11 or 12 years, and it's a nice neighborhood to come home to.
so perhaps having a conversation about keeping Rover safe and within that keeping him in your yard, things like that. Okay. So is there anything else that I'm missing before we dive into those things?
not for me.
Can't think of anything.
Okay. So perhaps you can start by talking about Rover in the yard. It seems to be something that is ongoing, and maybe it would be helpful to, think of a time when things were working. When I know you've only had Rover for 9 months, was there a time where things were working, where he was staying in the yard, things like that?
Well, I've had him for 6 months. I
Oh,
got him
okay.
when he was 3
Right,
months
because you
old.
can't, yeah, that makes
But,
sense.
I mean, when I first got him, he was, a little timid, and, so I don't think there were any problems for the first several weeks. I don't know. And bigger he gets, the more secure he feels. The longer he's
Mhm.
in his home, he feels more secure, so he's more comfortable.
Wants to explore the world.
Exactly. So, I don't know what more I could say.
I just thought of something.
What?
You know those fences that they call them invisible fences?
I'm not shocking my dog.
Okay.
Oh, no. Just read The Philosopher and the Wolf, Chapter 7, and you will not shock a dog.
Okay.
So,
I didn't
I've
know.
heard you say this a few times. What you want for Rover is something that is completely safe for him and
Yeah.
not restraining, things like that, all while keeping him in. So let me invite a conversation. Picture an ideal world where, you know, nothing, electric fences, things like that aren't involved. How would you keep Rover on your property, safe, feeling as though he's not constrained in this little bubble in your neighborhood? And Barbara, you can also think about this too. If you had a dog, something like that, how would you keep your dog safe without having to put on those constraints?
I don't know. I mean, all I can think of is, you know, and he's really smart. So I don't think it would take a long time. It would just take a period of time where I was really there and consistent of, you know, so, okay, so what it would look like is I let him out, he goes, does his business on our property. He sniffs around, he maybe barks at somebody who passes by, and then a few minutes later he comes in, and then, you know, that happens 2 or 3 times a day, and then another couple of times a day. You know, we put his suit on and his harness and his leash, and we go for a long walk, and that keeps him happy.
Okay.
So that would, so, you know, I was trying to think how to get there, and basically I would have to go out with him for, you know, I don't know, 15 minutes at a time, and just be very, monitor him really closely, and if he starts going off the property, to just whistle or something, get his attention and bring him back. And if he doesn't, then I go, you know, get hold of him and physically move him. And then give him a treat once he's on the property.
To reinforce the behavior. Okay, so what I'm hearing from you is that to be consistent with this process, every time Rover goes outside, you would be watching him, waiting for him to go to the bathroom, and then bringing him in, and then going on walks around the neighborhood together and another time. Does this seem like something you would be interested in doing?
Well, I mean, you know, I love dogs, I love Rover, and, you know, it's part of being a responsible guardian is to, you know, and it's part of developing a relationship with your dog, is doing that kind of thing. So, I guess truth be told, I'm, you know, whether he's bothering neighbors or not, it's something that I should be doing, so.
So in a sense, it will strengthen your relationship with Rover, all while getting him to be consistent with this pattern.
Yeah.
Okay. Barbara, what are your thoughts on this dream world, but maybe real world technique?
I just don't see it working, but, you know, I've never tried it, and there's a short-term thing about, okay, I guess what I'm trying to say is that you're going to go to work, and he's in the house, and then you're going to come home and you're going to do training with him, and you're going to be with him all the time until you feel like he's completely trained to stay in your yard. Is that, I mean, I'm just trying to get my mind around.
So are you thinking of
strategies
long-term,
this.
what this would produce?
Yeah,
Okay.
and I'm trying to figure out the down and dirty of what it's actually like. I mean, I think it's quite a task for you to take on of being out there every single time, all the time with him for a certain period of time, and try to do this positive Pavlovian sort of training.
The thing is that dogs learn, and Rover learns really quickly. So I'm gonna, make an estimate that, at most it would take 2 or 3 weeks for him to make these connections. Oh, she gets really mad when I go over there, so I'm not gonna go over there. We'll see what happens.
And what if it doesn't work?
Then I'll have to look at other options, I guess.
So we're coming up on the end of our time, and I'm wondering.
And I still haven't gotten the conversation about my rose bushes.
Right, and
I seem to go to everything else.
So, and I know that's very important for you, and one of the big reasons as to why you're here. And I apologize that you have such short time to get together today. What is it that you would like to get on the table right now before the session ends? Just so I don't want you to leave feeling like you didn't get to talk about this at all, and it was something you really wanted to press on. So
I guess what I want to get on the table is what I said at the very, very beginning, what I was here to do today. And that was to hopefully get reimbursed for my $200 for the rose bushes, and to have some kind of acknowledgement that it isn't just an arbitrary, punitive ask that I'm making of you, that these rose bushes really meant something to me in terms of a larger vision, as I mentioned, for the naturalized sort of approach to having a nice yard, and to have my loss respected. I'm not saying that my loss equals Rover. That's not the thing, but they're very important to me. And so we spent a lot of time talking about Rover, and I realized that he means a lot to you. And so I'm trying to work with that. I'd just like you to realize my roses and my yard mean a lot to me and all my friends that come in, and I don't want them to be stepping in dog poop. And I want my yard nice.
Well, I remember seeing them. They were beautiful roses. And I can understand that you're upset that they got spoiled. I don't know if it's possible to determine how they got spoiled. I mean, it's entirely possible some vandal came and dug them up.
Well, it was pretty doggy looking, like, remember I said it was like paw marks, and if you can identify that. I can't say it was that paw, but your dog's in my yard a whole lot, and something was dug up in my yard, ergo, that's.
So Barbara, what I heard from you is that you're very proud of your roses,
Mm-hmm.
in the gardening that you've done, and,
Yep.
and you would like acknowledgement that they also meant something to you, because you had beautiful flowers, from what I'm hearing, in
Mhm.
front of your house.
Smelled nice.
Mhm. And you were just looking for, even a conversation on that those were something that you took pride in.
A conversation and a monetary.
Right. I think what I'm hearing from Susan is that there's no way of telling if this was Rover or not, so you don't feel comfortable, admitting to something that is inconclusive. So I think there's a dilemma here where there were roses that were dug up, and how do you tell who did it, and how does that reimbursement come from the unknown?
That doesn't ring true with me. So.
Okay. So you feel that you feel as though Rover was
Yeah.
responsible for it?
I know that he was
Didn't pay the
in my
electricity.
heart, and in just a matter of, as I said before, he's in my yard all the time, and he's up to other mischief in my yard.
Okay.
You know, there's no other dogs that come in my yard that I've ever noticed.
So because you see Rover all the time, you
Yeah,
think that it was
you know,
his
if
responsibility?
it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a duck.
Okay. And Susan, you're still not thoroughly convinced, but
Well,
understanding that they are nice roses.
Yeah, and, you know, I mean, if Barbara's willing to, like, take installment payments or something,
Okay.
I could, you know, kind of more as a neighbor, not necessarily as the owner of the guilty party, but just as a neighbor who, you know, appreciates the roses as much as you do.
So without having to admit fault, but wanting to do good by Barbara, you would be willing to do
Yeah.
some installments?
Yeah.
Okay. And what would those look like? I don't know if you've thought of it much.
The payments?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is $50 a month, but I don't know if that's dragging it out too far. I could probably do a little more than that, but how does that?
$50 a month would be fine.
Okay.
I will, probably, well, I don't know how I'll make that work, but, you know, $50 a month, this is, like
Yeah.
March, April, May, June.
Yeah,
By
so
June,
when you'd
it'll
be
be a
planting
good
them
time
anyway, so.
to put them in,
Yeah.
so that would work for me.
Okay.
Okay.
And I'll go get them. Is there any color you like?
It's your yard.
Okay.
So I just want to wrap up everything before you leave today. So we're the first thing that was talked about was Ted's motorcycle and him getting it started in the morning. So each of you agreed that it would be helpful if Ted walked his motorcycle to the other side of the house to start it, and he could still get on with his day that way and take his motorcycle to work. Also, Susan, you're going to work on being consistent with Rover, watching him when he goes out, rewarding him when he stays in the yard, things like that, and then taking him for walks during the day. And you are going to pay Barbara $50 a month to replace the roses, because each of you do like admiring them and they spruce up the neighborhood.
I have a question now.
Sure.
What happens if, for example, because my mind just has to go there, if it doesn't work, that going around the corner mediates the noise? Or what happens if the animal instincts of an adolescent dog, puppy, German Shepherd, who are adventurous dogs, energetic dogs, right? Smart, I know. What if you can't get that training done? What if it doesn't happen? So, and I'm not asking you to comment on what ifs exactly.
Right.
I'm just for process, what do we do? Does that mean that you are never going to complain about Ted's motorcycle again? Because we've done what we could do?
I talked to you and, you know, probably hopefully talk to Ted too and see if we can figure something out. Maybe that's when we try the muffler idea.
Right, so there happen to be a lot of what ifs. These are all very good options that each of you have come up with, but it seems as though there are reservations because a number of these may not work. So would you be interested in meeting and having another session, maybe in a couple weeks, a month out, to see how these things have been working, and if they have, great. If not, maybe brainstorming other ideas on how to mitigate everything.
I would, but I would say I'd give us more time than that, actually. More
Yeah,
time
well,
than a couple
at least a
weeks.
month, because that'll, you know,
Are you
Right,
gonna
so that
be-
the train, things like
Right.
that.
You think you can do that in that short a period of time?
he's a smart dog.
Mhm.
And if not, feel free to contact me and I can be pushed out if each of you agree on the date. So what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to write up an agreement of what each of you have talked about today, and then I will also send you some summary notes, and then perhaps another time, a meeting time for when
Well,
each of you can get together.
Can we have a contract just addressing the money? Because
Sure,
that's something
sure.
we both have control over.
Would it be helpful to write that out
Yes.
in agreement form, and then the other things perhaps as a summary of what each of you will try, and then come back with
Right. Yeah.
to talk about
That
if it
makes
was
sense.
Yeah.
if it worked or not?
Yeah.
Okay. So I will do that for each of you, and then you can look it over, and then we will meet again in about a month.
Sounds good.
All right. I thank you each for meeting with me today.
Thank you, Kayla.